Welcome back, everybody. So a little chaotic right now, but I'm in the middle of shimming the main bearings to the crankshaft to get the proper running clearance. So I was able to find more shims for the crank, and I didn't know this, but apparently, even though I don't think the parts book shows this, or if it does, it's in a different section, but these are the shims that came out of my tractor, and these are the shims that I got. Really, they're the same, like hole size and overall they're about the same. But the new shims have this little like U where the oil passage goes on the main bearing, and the old shims are just square, or it's more of a square hole for the oil to flow by. So that's interesting, didn't know that was even a thing. So as I'm stacking the new shims on top of the old shims, I'm putting this oil hole closer to the oil passage on the main bearings so the oil can flow around. And I don't know, you should be able to see. So I've already got the right side of the tractor done where the belt pulley goes. Now I'm working on the flywheel side. For me, I'm hoping 35 thousandths will do both sides. I will find out here in a little bit. The belt pulley side, I used 35 thousandths worth of shims stacked up, and that got me 3 thousandths of running clearance. And the spec is 2 to 6. So I figure 3 thousandths is pretty good. I know it's on the tighter side, but everything will wear, and the clearance should get bigger, I guess, over time. So hopefully that'll work on this side as well. I have 35 thousandths of shims right there. I need to measure that pile of shims and see how thick they are, and then add what I have over here, and hopefully I will have enough shims to shim both sides of the crank. So as it turns out, I can't read a plastic gauge label very well, and I'm on the belt pulley side of the tractor now. When I first started, it had, check my notes, 5 thousandths of clearance, which is okay for the 2 to 6 thousandths spec, but I was able to get the left side of the tractor, or the flywheel side, at 3 thousandths. So I came back over here, took out a couple shims, and now this side has 3 thousandths of clearance. By the way, for future reference, or anybody looking to do this, you probably will not need more shims for another tractor if you put new main bearings onto a polished crank. Because it took me, there's the right side. The left side took 10 tries to get 3 thousandths of running clearance. And and in case you're curious, on the top hole on the left side, I guess I can walk over there. Yeah. So I'll start here, I guess. Right side, this is the top, this is the bottom. Really, they're about 31 thousandths of shims each. And as we go to the flywheel side, I ended up with 22 thousandths of shims on the top and 31 thousandths, or 21 thousandths of shims on the bottom, excuse me. So, sweet, one more thing done. One less thing to do now. So for those of you watching, this has been about a second, but for me it's been about, 2 weeks. A lot has been learned in this 2 weeks, and as it turns out from the last clips, I shimmed the crank wrong. Because when I put both of the shim stacks on both sides, the shims themselves were the same thickness, but the overall height of the shims was different. And if you can look at my previous 2 clips, you might be able to see it, but the gap up here was significantly bigger than the gap down here. So therefore, the bearing cap was sitting cockeyed on the crank, and I could not spin the crank by hand. So I thought I'd spin it over with like a pipe wrench, and that was okay, but as it turns out, very wrong. And I'll put a picture in here of what the bearing shells look like after I did that. So, I didn't even know that was a thing, and I didn't even know I should have checked that. But, lesson learned. I had to take the main caps off of both sides, and I redid the entire shim stacks, and I'll insert a picture here in the video so you can see kind of what I did, and hopefully you can read my handwriting and the text is big enough for you to see. But both sides were shimmed very wrong. They were not even, they were not going to be square and running true. So it took, I don't know, I think it took maybe a half hour to reshim those or restack those, excuse me. But now I have both sides within 1,000th of running clearance of each other, and I can spin the crankshaft by hand very easily. And that's a key. I didn't know how particular these old 2-cylinders were, but as it turns out, it is really good to be able to spin the crankshaft by hand. You shouldn't have to put a lot of effort into spinning it. So maybe somebody watching this will learn from my mistakes in the future, or maybe I can look back on this and learn from my mistakes if I ever do one of these again. So, check mark. The crankshaft is in and installed finally after like way too long. And in some good news, I have a piston in a cylinder. Now, why might you ask? I only have one piston in the cylinder. Technically I have two, but a little confusion on assembling the pistons with the rings, and I'll put in a picture of what I kind of started. So, looking at the piston, the ring that I have in the top isn't supposed to go there, but I just put it there just to check the clearance. But if you look in the 3rd and 4th ring grooves from the top of the piston, those rings, as they're sitting, have about 90 thousandths of clearance between the ring and the top of the ring land. So that means that ring can move around in the ring groove, and it could either score up the cylinder wall or bind on the piston, therefore scoring up the cylinder wall again and using a lot of oil, and that's really not what I want with this tractor, because I'm going through all this effort to rebuild it and I would like it to run right. Now you might think, well, why don't you just follow the assembly instructions that came with the piston kit? Well, here's all I got for assembly instructions. Now, in I guess fairness, the rings came in packages, like this is a package for one set, here's a package for another set. The confusing thing, this package, as you can see, is for the 3rd and the 4th grooves. Well, there were a total of 4 rings in this package. So that would mean, in theory, you would put 2 rings on one piston, another 2 rings on the other piston. Okay, easy enough to follow, but these rings were thinner than the 2nd and the 1st groove rings. And I'm not talking about the oil ring, that one's different and that one installed fine. But like, these are thinner, as you can see in the picture, or saw in the picture, than the 2nd groove and the 1st groove rings. So 4 rings here. Okay, cool. So there should probably be 2 rings per cylinder. The 2nd groove, as they call it, rings, there were 4 rings in this package. So then one might assume you would put 2 rings on one piston, I guess, and then another 2 rings on another piston. But if there is a ring in the 4th and 3rd groove already, had you add 2 more rings when there was another package, which I don't have sitting out right now, for the 1st groove, which had 2 rings in it, so then you would assumably put 1 ring in one piston, another ring in another piston. And there are 4 compression ring grooves on the pistons that I bought, plus an oil ring groove. So I am very confused about all this, and I'm talking with my parts guy right now, and we're working something out. This may be the case of somebody put these rings into this kit, which this is the kit that I have, if anybody's wondering, or maybe wants to buy it in the future. And I'm not saying this is a bad kit. It's very nice quality pistons, very nice. Like the wrist pins slid right into the pistons right out of the box. Didn't have to hone them. They fit great, honestly. Just the only problem is I don't know what I'm supposed to do with the rings. Am I supposed to put 2 of these into the 4th groove on the piston, and then put 1 of these in the 2nd groove and 1 of these in the 3rd groove, and then 1 ring in the top groove? Are these truly supposed to effectively move around in that 3rd and 4th ring groove to act as like a wiper? I know they have done double rings in pistons before in other manufacturers, but I don't know if that's right for this application. And I quickly Googled some other piston kits for this tractor, and those kits all seem to have 4 thicker rings for the pistons. So I don't really know what to do, and that's kind of why the number 2 piston is just sitting there. It's not fully installed yet. And I mean, I got number 1 on torque to the crankshaft. It's got, I think, 4 thousandths of running clearance, and the spec is 2 to 6, so that's fine. And I anticipate this one to be about the same. But before we go any further, I figured we'd stop here, because it's not that hard to pull this piston back out. And this one's not going to be very hard either to pull back out. It's just waste a little bit of time, but you'll have that. So that's currently on hold, unfortunately, and it seems like every time I turn the corner I run into something else in this freaking tractor, but you'll have that, I guess, on ones that have been sitting outside for 30 years and locked up. In other happy news, since the pistons are hopefully going to be put together soon, I went ahead and assembled the cylinder head. And I did not know this, but maybe some of you did. If you ever have a John Deere A or a B cylinder head with an H in front of the John Deere part number, H stands for Heisler, and that means this is a high compression cylinder head. On the Heisler cylinder heads, the combustion chamber right here is pretty well the same height as your valves. On the John Deere head, this area would be recessed more into the head, which would be for lower compression, which would be good for distillate engines and or hand cranking. But since this tractor is electric start, high compression doesn't really matter. And I did not even remember that these heads existed, and I never thought I'd be lucky enough to even get one, because apparently these are hard to find. So it's kind of a cool feature on this tractor restoration. And for the time being, I'm just going to leave this head assembled like this. I'm not going to put the exhaust manifold studs in yet, because I figured it would be easier to put this on the tractor without those studs, so I have one less thing to poke me as I slide it on. But hopefully I'll have another update for you all fairly soon, and hopefully this baby is sitting right there. And hopefully maybe I'll have a valve train and a valve cover put on, and this mess of stuff will look like a tractor again until we tear into back here. But that's for later. Thank you all for stopping in, and hope to see you again.